Okay, welcome to, um, I'm used to saying criminal law, business law, uh, J234. If that's the class that you're supposed to be in, then 5.5, 5.5 weeks, you're in the right place. My name is Richard Wright, and you can call me Richard, you can call me Professor, you can call me Dr. Wright. Just don't call me late for dinner. You can call me anything. I have a sense of humor, as you'll discover during the next 5.5 weeks, which I always remind students. Um, it goes so fast. Before you know it, the quarter is over. And actually, as I look at my calendar here, um, I let's see, our lectures. Well, you'll see in a minute. So I'll put that on the screen in just a minute. But at any rate, you're going to see today that I'm just going to go over details, provide you with information concerning what is required in this course, some expectations, and then at the end I'm going to give, or at some point, a keyword that you're going to need to send to me in order to receive your 5 points, which you'll want to do all the time. So let's get started right now. We may go a little bit over 6, not too much further because I have another lecture at 6:30 that I have to do. So let's just share my screen here. I'm still learning these new, here we go. Okay, let me get that recorder thing out the way. Here we go. We're recording. Okay, so let's share this. Let's share this. Okay, right now you can see Firefox. That's what I'm on here. Let me move Lila's little thing out of the way here. You'll see my instructor information at the right-hand corner with that mugshot of mine. You can see I was smiling, so I took that at college and not at the police department. So anyway, it gives you some key information in here that you need to take heed and note of. First, it gives my phone number. That is my cell phone number. That is a phone number that if you call the other number, there's another number in, I think that either in the welcome announcement or either I have it in the student lounge. But anyway, this is the best number to use to call me or text me. Now, here's my little note, and I'm going to read it. Students can feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. 25th hour of the day, and you can figure that one out. I am very open with my students. I like to assist my students. I'm one of the most available professors that you're ever going to have, and that's just how I roll. So I want to make sure that my students do get what they need for student success, and my goal is to have everyone to be successful. Then I want to remind you that APA, and if you're not familiar with APA, which you should be at this particular point, then you need to understand that I stress citations in the body and, not or, and references at the end. Must be a reference page. And you should have a cover page. And you should also type in Roman 12 point. That should be the font. I'm not dogmatic on that, but I do remind students that that's the appropriate way. And then we have resources such as in this course announcement at the very beginning, which I just clicked on. There's a link that leads you to help with APA if you need help with APA. And if I see that you're continuing to have problems with APA, I will refer you to one of our great student tutors to help you out there. Okay, so now, again, I went too far there. Let me move this over just a tad. There we go. Okay, again, I also want to remind you that the sole source of your papers, and in this class here, we're going to have more exercises than papers, but when you do your papers, make sure that you do some research and you don't just use the textbook as your sole source of research, because the idea is for you to not just take the information out of the module, but also to gather information from the critical thinking and analysis that you have in that good brain that you got in the top of your head there. So we want to have you to apply that and demonstrate that in your written assignments. And then I already talked about the next thing, and then the cover sheet as well. You'll lose 1 point if you don't have a cover sheet, but that's all part of APA as well. And then we have some helpful resources that I won't take time to go. You can, at your own leisure, go over those, and I provide those to my students when some professors don't. Some tutoring assistants explain to you how tutors work, the importance of tutors, and that stressing to you that a tutor is not just someone that you need when you're in trouble. They can also help you as well to increase your ability to be able to provide excellent papers as well. So there's a couple of things about that. Then there's some tremendous articles, and you'll notice that they say for criminal justice students, and you can apply those to other sections as well. But because I'm primarily in criminal justice, don't misunderstand it. Because I'm in criminal justice, I started out in corporate law, and as a matter of fact, my first job at the college was teaching business law back in 2011. So I know about contracts. I used to represent entertainers and athletes, and I did real estate closings dealing with contracts as well. So I'm very familiar with business law. But I had thought about that when I put this in. I said, well, this same information can be used. You just have to go to the business section. Then this critical thinking video is applicable to all disciplines. And if you want to understand a little bit more about critical thinking, copy and paste this video, and it'll take you to what you need. So now the all-important rubrics. I stress to students throughout the course that in order to get assignments to the 30-point range here, which is the A, you must follow all of these points. Very important, very important. And it says the current trend is clearly described in your paper, and also outlines solution to prevent or minimize the issue. Remember, your topic is recent business crime. Now, recent can be, you know, as far back as a few years ago. There's always business crimes going on now, especially since we have technology. But there's been some really big ones, such as, and I'll just throw a name out, and I know a lot of you are going to probably go to it, but go back to Enron. But there's been others as well. And there's some Ponzi schemes, which I won't mention the name of the person involved in that, but you find that in your research. But anyway, discuss the issue, and so you get 25 points for that. But then make sure you satisfy the page requirement. We'll see that specifically when we go into the module in just a few minutes. And then your grammar and spelling. I do highly recommend using Grammarly. You each have a Grammarly account, which is under your resources tab, which is just, whoops, a little big here. Let me make that Let me, you know what, I'm going to kill this. Let me do this. Alfonso, if you could just turn off your video. Just click on your video and turn it off. I mean, I like seeing you, but it's going to use some of the bandwidth up. See if I was trying to, let me see if I can move it over. And I can do it. Okay, I don't see. Okay, I see a way to do it. Let me just go back to stop sharing for just a minute. Then I can do it. Come back to that in just a minute. Okay, let me go to Alfonso and thought I could kill your video. Okay, there, it's gone. Okay, very well, it's gone up here. I don't see it. All right, let's go back to sharing. Try not to use your video, guys, because it will create some problems further into the recording. All right, so anyway, let me move this out the way again. Okay, so at the top of the page, as soon as I can get this over here, my mouse is doing its own thing. There we go. At the very top. Okay, there's a resources tab, and you see that. And if you click on the resources tab in your course, it'll open up various things. And one of the things that it'll open up is your Grammarly. Okay, make that smaller. All right, let's go down here. Okay, so anyway, you want to run your papers through Grammarly so you can make sure that you don't have, and then use the box to check for plagiarism, because the idea is I want to see your critical thinking in your papers. And then I already talked about APA. So let's move this back up here. All right, so let's go on down. So each week you have one of those. All right, and then I also emailed them to you. So now, and then your discussion posts also have a generic one that we use. The key thing with discussion posts is to make sure that they provide detailed information, make sure that they're on time. This week, your initial post and reply post are due Saturday. That's usually not the norm if you're familiar with it. The norm is initial post on Tuesdays and then reply post on Saturdays by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're in the Eastern Time zone, you should always have no problem. If you're West, then you need to adjust your time to make sure. Okay. And then this is our live lecture schedule. You can always find it on the calendar. You'll also see it in the announcements as well. However, I also post, I provide a lot of information on the course homepage that a lot of professors don't, because I want students to be able to access it real quick. And so it tells you about the open house live lecture today, and it tells you that we will have lectures starting next week. Next week. Every week we will have a lecture. It will be Wednesdays, 5 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that's the 15th, which is Wednesday of next week. You must attend a live lecture or listen to the archive. I encourage students to try to come to the live lectures. I haven't really had a lot of lectures early in the day. Like now, I usually have them late at night. However, because I have so many classes now, I'm pretty much going to be doing at least 3 lectures every week. Sometimes it's up to 5. Like this week, I'm doing 5 lectures. So you guys are number 3, and then I have 2 more after you today. Anyway, there'll be a keyword given and you'll provide that in order to get it. Now, the keyword needs to be, it is an assignment to read, to review the lecture, or either to be in the lecture. Those of you in the lecture, you can take the keyword right after you get through, and you could send it to me just the way you send any other assignment information in, and you'll put the keyword in, and then I will get it, and then I'll give you your points. But at any rate, it has to be in no later than Sunday, like every other written assignment that you'll see, by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time in order to get the 5 points. And it must be the correct keyword. So if you do it on that Monday after, you're going to get 4 points, assuming you got the right keyword. And then it's going to all the way down. You're going to lose a point each day until you get too late to get any points at all. So the key thing is to make sure that you follow that, okay? All right, so now let's go back to the top, and let's go over here. Again, I provide for you some things that will help you on the left side. APA, I've already talked about that. The writing process, you can open that up as well, and it explains to you things that can help you. We have a writing guide in here. We have all kinds of resources to help you. Our ideal is to get you to be a successful student. And then your welcome announcement, which that was the first announcement that you received from me. And in your welcome announcement, I'll go back and open it up a little bit. It tells you a little bit about me, my education, and so forth, and it gives you some little highlighted points. Make sure, pay attention to this. This announcement will be available throughout the quarter. The weekly announcements will disappear after a certain period of time. Very important that you follow these things, especially checking your calendar. And if you have not, you can click the section that says calendar and it'll lead you to it, but I'm going to show you one of the places that I'll be opening up your calendar in just a little bit. There's general course questions, which you can post in the discussion section. You'll see general course questions, and anybody can answer these questions. Not your private information that you want me, then you send me an email. And then I already talked about the resources tab there. Then your grade book and things like that. And so, of course, someone will call while I'm in the lecture. And so then, whoops, just jumping around here. So then we get down here and I give you the details again about the lectures and all of that. So that's that. Okay. So now let's go back to the announcement for today. So every week you'll see an announcement similar to this one, and it'll tell you what the subject is, Foundations of Business Law. Today, kind of we'll touch on that a little bit. Chapters 1 to 3 of your book, which you should be able to get. It's embedded in the course, Essentials in Business Law, and then take a look and complete the activities, business law overview, and utilize the flashcards. We'll take a little time to do that as well. And then it tells you when the lectures take place, and it tells you that today will be at 5 o'clock, which we're in now. Then your discussion posts, why have laws pertaining to business? And many of you have answered them, and I've started to respond to some of you guys already. And your initial post is due Saturday, 11:59 p.m., and your reply post is due Saturday. Remember, once again, this is the only week that you will see that. So I know I'm going to have some students that say, oh, I didn't know, I thought my discussion posts were all due Saturday. Not true, not true. And so you want to make sure that you get your discussion posts in on time. And then finally, you have your written assignment, which recent business crime. And then we're going to talk about the course project, and I'm going to spend some time talking about that. And then I remind you in caps, pay close attention to the rubrics. I said that before. Rubrics, it should be in your head. That is a map to maximize your points. And then a reminder about the open house lecture that's taking place right now. And then my motto, start strong, finish strong. But my motto, adversity is a springboard to success. I'll give you just a brief bit of information about why I say that at the end of this lecture. For a few minutes, it'll take just a few. So now let's go back and let's see, let's get over here. Let's take a look at the syllabus. Well, no, let's do the syllabus first, because the syllabus tells you some valuable information as well. It tells you who I am, my phone number. Now it gives an email. Now this email, you can send me an email outside of class to my regular email, outside of course email. But you can do it without the two, and I'll get the email as well. Sometimes students do that, but my preference is to put it in the course mail. However, the course mail, I won't know as an email until I open up my course mail. My email, it comes automatically to my computer, and it also comes to this, my smartphone. And I have that on me all the time. I do exercising. I even have it in my pocket then because I use it to count and measure my exercising. So you can always send me an email that way. And then I remind you about the things that I told you earlier in here as well. All right, pertaining to APA. All right. And then this, again, is the text by Rogers. And you want to make sure that you have access to that. If you have problems, contact personal support right away and or your advisor. Okay. Now this tells the requirements, and it sets out the fact that, okay, term 2 tells when assignments are due for week 1 through 5, Sunday at midnight. Then the final week, the last day of class. So all your written assignments, with the exception of discussion posts, are due Sundays. And this says midnight, but we say 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay. Discussion posts should be detailed, not simple one-liners, not yes or no or I agree. And also, I appreciate it when students post more than one post for a reply post. I also appreciate it when you have citations and or references in your post, not required. It is something that I think is a good habit for you to develop. And then also be very courteous, as it says, with your classmates. I don't always agree with your post, but if I don't, I'll explain why. I won't shoot you down. Because I say I disagree, that doesn't mean you're in trouble. That just means that I'll explain to you why. Sometimes I have information that, with my experience as a lawyer, I remember when I took business law in college, which was way back in the late 60s or early 70s, probably early 70s, like 70. I ended up learning business law. I was working in a law firm, but I wasn't a lawyer, and I'll tell you about that a little later. But the point of the matter is that I didn't know as much law as the person who had gone to law school. Man, when I got to law school, every chapter in there, like corporations, for example, we had a book and a course for that. So you just get a thumbnail sketch and some working knowledge. So we want to make sure that you understand that we're not trying to make lawyers out of you. We're just trying to give you working knowledge of this. Okay, and then we talk about APA again here. That's going to be drummed into you here. Then it tells you about what your assignments are. Okay, now let's jump right down to grading criteria, which is important. Now, your assignments, your discussions, as you can note, you will receive 20 points each week, 10 points for initial post, 10 points for reply post, which is just a little over a quarter of your actual final percentage points. Then your written assignments is the largest, as you can see, 150 points, or a little over 1/3, or right at 1/3. And then your course project is almost about a quarter of it, for 120. And then your live classroom, don't underestimate those 30 points. They can make a difference in, even though it's a small percentage, in A or B and a C and a C and a D, which we won't talk about too much, and you'll understand that in a minute. And then your other assignments, 35 points for a total of 455 points, and you'll see what I'm talking about as we go along. Okay, so now let me say this to you up front. My goal is to get you into the A category, which means A or A minus, or B category, which is B plus, B, or B minus. Anything short of that, I don't talk about, I don't discuss, never, and I have had students to come back and do it, never ask me what it takes to get a C in my class or to just pass my class. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm telling you how to get A and B's in the class, primarily A's. And my goal is to get you to excellence. And I'm not going to expect anything more of you than I expect of myself. I've been in your shoes before. I've been in your position, and I maintain contact with that type of thing. Now I have kids that are your age and older. You'll see that in my picture, but then you'll find out that I have other kids as well that are like, I have a 47-year-old daughter, a 46-year-old daughter, a 40-year-old daughter, and I also have a daughter who will be 28 or 29. Anyway, she was born in 1990, so in September she'll change her age. But anyway, I know, and I have a granddaughter who just graduated from college a couple years ago. So I have kids and grandkids who are your age. I'm in touch with reality now, and I have a 10-year-old as my youngest. And so I'm pretty much on point with where you guys are now. I know a lot of the issues that you face from what I did, and I know the differences. So anyway, my expectations for you, these are things that I will always do. I do them already, all right? So I'm not even going to read over these. I do want to take a few minutes to talk about transferable skills, which is so appropriate and important in all areas, in all disciplines, whether it's business or nursing, whether it's criminal justice, anything that you're doing. And these transferable skills are skills that employers will be looking for you when you leave here to work in your careers. And one of the first ones is communication. They always talk about good communicators, written and oral communication, very, very important. You'll be exercising that a lot in these classes. Now, oral not a whole lot because we're online when we're residential. However, though, I do ask questions sometimes, and students will communicate. But in your exercises and assignments, you're going to be operating in oral communication. Maybe not even with me directly, but with others, because you're going to develop that skill so that when you do start to work. Critical thinking, you're going to hear that over and over, my favorite transferable skills. You need to be able to think on your feet. You need to be able to be more creative just to provide information or research information or details. I want to know what's in that head. What do you think about the information that you gather? Critique it, break it down. Agree, disagree, explain why you disagree or agree. Provide support for your positions and so forth. And so we get into that. Digital fluency, everything's digital. When I was in school, I came out of law school in 1978. There was no such animal. And even I went back to school when I went to seminary in 91 and 93. We didn't use it then much there, but we did use it when I went back at 53 for a fourth degree to get an MBA. And I was accepted into an MBA program at University of Illinois, Chicago, and I did over almost all of it, and then I was in a car accident. But however, we used laptops, we used iPads, Android pads, and we used books that were digital and so forth. So we were moving into that, and so you guys are already aware of the fact that everything is digital these days, including operating in this classroom. So we want you to be fluent in that. Diversity. People come from all backgrounds, all walks of life. You need to respect them and be able to accept them for who they are and give them an opportunity to be who they are. Teamwork. You're going to be working in teams. How do you do teams in this course? Very easy. You're going to be responding and replying to each other's posts, discussion posts, and you'll be exercising communication and working in a team to come up with answers and provide support. I really, really, really love when I see an active students in the discussion forum that takes the time out. I've had students that do 4 and 5 posts a week, and awesome, and replying to each of their different classmates. Ethics. I taught a course in business ethics here several times. Ethics is so critical and very important. If you don't operate in an ethical fashion, you could find yourself either losing a position and or behind bars and find yourself in a very bad situation. And so we practice ethics here in the school. One of the ways we do it is we have you on your trust in terms of doing your assignments, that you don't have somebody writing them for you, and that you're actually doing them yourself, you're working. Because you know what, I tell people, you don't learn anything when somebody does it for you. You need to be able to do it yourself. Even if you fall down, get back up, dust yourself up, see what errors you made, make corrections, and then move forward. And those ethics will transfer into how you operate in the business world as well. Professional responsibility, there are things that you have to do. For example, let's say, for example, if you became a realtor, you'll have a code of conduct. Or if you became an accountant, you'll have a code of conduct. And anything that you do, work in securities, you're going to have some responsibility. And then information literacy, you need to be able to find things, be able to research. We provide resources in our Library and Learning Center for schools of business to help you, as well as schools of justice, nursing, and so forth. So you'll have an opportunity to demonstrate these during the course. All right, I'm not going to talk about the attendance policy. I am going to talk about the late assignment policy, is that if you don't complete an assignment on time, you will lose 10% each day that the assignment is late. Be aware of that. So you want to make sure that you understand the importance of getting those assignments in on time. However, discussion posts conclude at the end of the week. So after the discussion forum is over, you can't submit a post and receive credit for it. I'll always let you know. And you can't make up discussion posts. And makes sense because your discussions change week to week, just like if you were in actually residentially in class, the same thing occurs there. And so what I do is, as I say, generally the initial posts are Tuesdays and the reply posts are Saturdays. If you post a reply post and a discussion post on Saturday, with the exception of this week now, you will not get points. Well, you'll get a point. You get points taken off for that initial post. Your reply post will be on time. But let's say you submit your initial post on Sunday and your reply post on Sunday. You're not going to get any points. However, if you submit your initial post on time, or even if it's late up to Saturday, and then you submit a reply post the next day, Sunday, then I will give you the deducted points for your late initial post, and then I will deduct 1 day for your reply post. But if you submit them both on Sunday, you will get nothing. So I guess that's kind of clear. If you need clarification, feel free to reach out to me about that. And the final thing I want to say about this is that, oh, by the way, I don't have any students will ask me sometime, can I do any extra assignments? The answer is no. I have over 100 and some odd students in 5 classes that I teach, so it's not possible for me to do that because it's unfair. You get one bite at the apple there, and except in certain exceptions, which I won't go into. I'll go into those on a case-by-case basis. I will say this, though, finally, about this, is that it says instructors may waive the late penalty in the case of extenuating circumstances as determined by the faculty. That would be me. So I determine if you have extenuating circumstances. Now, here's what I don't like. If a student has assignments that are due and they don't submit their assignments on time, and then they wait like a week later and says, oh, I forgot to tell you last week I was dealing with this or that. I'm sorry. Generally, I won't do that. You got to let me know extenuating circumstances. And let me say this to you right now. Since I've given you a mode of communication with me, if I had an extenuating circumstance, I would shoot an email, bam, like right away. Or if I had a situation that really was bad, I would text me right away. Incidentally, I forgot to say this. When you text me, please make sure you say your name, because your phone number won't mean much to me. Tell me your name and what class you're in, because of all the classes that I have here. And then, again, back to the point, texting me, and you will determine this for me. A lot of times I'll read the text, and I don't like the text back. I'll call you back. And if you're working or you're not available, just let it go to voicemail, text me a message back. But I like to communicate with students when they're in really, really, really bad situations. I've had some really disastrous situations, and I will reach out and talk to the student about it. Emails sometimes also back and forth get kind of, how should I say, confusing. I had a student that says, oh, you put your stuff in all caps. That means yelling to me. I said, no, it doesn't necessarily mean yelling. It could mean pay close attention to it as well. I don't scream or yell a whole lot. My kids, I get them, the ones that live here. Even the ones that don't live here anymore, I don't yell at them. But the point of the matter is that the key thing is the quickest way that you want me to know that your situation. I won't talk about incomplete grade policies, the academic integrity policy. I'll let you read that yourself. But we don't have a lot of students that I have that have had that problem. And since I've been here almost 7 years, I haven't run across that a lot. And then this plagiarism issue here. Now, keep in mind, the plagiarism in Grammarly is a little bit different from here. Again, with citations and references, you can still be guilty of plagiarism if you submit a paper, and that's all it is. But I want your critical thinking in there. Your critical thinking needs to offset the amount of information. Don't use large sections of a source to fill your paper and then have a 2-liner, a comment about it. Then you're going to get hit with a percentage of Grammarly. So you're going to lose that percentage off in terms of your grade, and we don't want that kind of thing to happen. Okay, so now we've done that. Let's go to the course calendar, and there's different ways of doing it. You can do it at the top. It says course calendar, but this is how I like to do it, and it'll lead me to the course calendar here, and there it is right there. And you could see that for the next 5.5 weeks, everything that's in there, your reading assignment, your lecture today, your initial post and reply post showing from that date. Notice this. And then your written assignment, and then the course project, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit here. Now, your reading assignment every week will generally be on Mondays. Now, you could do it before that, but I give you that as well. Notice this. Starting next week, the 14th, initial posts are all on Tuesdays. Again, I repeat things because, trust me, students have missed something and then I'm giving it again. There are some students who says, okay, I already got it. Just remember, I'm not directing it at anybody just to be redundant, but I am trying to give what I have seen in the years I've been teaching what students will do. And then your live lectures, you see next one we'll have next week at 5 o'clock. The lectures usually during the week after week 1 will be shorter. They may not even be a full hour, okay? So anyway, and then it goes down as well, okay? So that's how the course calendar operates. So now let's get into the actual module. I think I've covered everything I want to outside of that. Starting with assignments again. Okay, and this tells you what your specific assignment is. And okay, now this week you introduced some common business and related crimes. Your assignment is to research recent crimes, not more than 3 years old. I'm going to do this because I was reading this, and I think I know why they did that. However, there are some things that are really big that took place more than 3 years ago, and I'm not going to be concerned about that. I just don't want you to go back to the 1800s or even maybe the early 1900s. I was born in 1950. If it was something that happened before that, I don't want you to use that. If it was something that happened in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, that's okay. More like the 90s. There's enough things that have happened. Again, when technology came and got involved, that made it even more severe. So there's a lot of business type crimes that you will find. And it tells you what to do here. And I'm not going to read it because you can read it yourself. But I just wanted to point out some things in here that I wanted to make sure that you be aware of. Make sure that you satisfy the paging requirement. Remember, I showed you that in the rubric. This says a minimum of 2 pages. And it talks about APA, both in text and full citations and references at the end, okay? And so then you know how to submit your assignments through the Dropbox, okay? Then your live classroom. So now, notice I talked about the project. It is not an assignment, but I am getting ready to go to that and talk about that in a second here. So let's get into the lesson content. And it tells you what our objectives are. During the course of the week, you'll see that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today because I want to keep you not longer than 20 after. But I do want to share something with you at the end. Again, it gives you an overview, tells you click on this, and then you can get to your chapters. Some of you can take your material and print it up. I did. I printed up my book, and I have it so that I could make sure that I have the print copy as well as what's in here. And then we're going to go over business law overview briefly and the activity, and then your written assignment, and then your course project. We're going to talk about your discussion, and then, of course, we have the live classroom discussion. All right. So now while we're here, let's talk about the business overview. Okay. So it talks about what business is all about. It talks about you understanding how business operates and how businesses have changed, what the rules, and another word for laws. And I always say this all the time, uh, and that is rules. Rules are synonymous with laws, and the laws can be based on criminal or civil. And the civil is when people sue against each other. The case is John Doe versus John Smith. In the case of criminal cases, it's the people of the state of, for example, Illinois versus John Doe, those kind of things. And the civil laws generally involve suing for money or dealing with what we call equitable remedies. Equitable remedies are things like injunctions, things of that nature, things that say to a person, you have to stop doing this, or quit doing this. So sometimes money damages aren't adequate. We learned that in our in law school in one course all about equities, where we talked about equitable remedies, and it was one course just about that. So I'm not going to get into that in detail. Civil laws involve tort. Tort is basically injuries to an individual. They could be intentional and unintentional. Uh, an intentional tort, as it says here, is like you do something on purpose to somebody, like assault them, commit battery, false imprisonment. I mean, you hold them hostage or something of that nature. Unintentional torts are things like negligence and malpractice. It says medical malpractice, but any kind of malpractice. It doesn't have to be. It could be business malpractice as well. Lawyers have malpractice as well. And accountants have malpractice. That means you did something out of the norm for that individual. And then the sources of the law. There are various sources, and you'll be aware of that. This applies to criminal as well as civil. The Constitution is the basis primarily for all laws, and then most states have constitutions as well. The Bill of Rights in the Constitution. There are state constitutions. There are statutes in every jurisdiction that specify state issues that are different in according to the jurisdictions. Common law. Common law is basically applying what we call the term of stare decisis. It's a Latin term which means applying the laws of the past or the case decisions of the past to provide justification for why something is done, or an interpretation of a statute, for example. Then there's administrative rules. These are not courts. These are quasi-courts where, like, for example, if you go before a board, like, for example, accountants have a board, lawyers have a board that they have to go in front of. The Environmental Protection Agency is an administrative agency in their rules. And then there are executive orders. Those are signed by the chief executive. In the case of the United States, that's the president. In the case of most jurisdictions outside of that, that's the states, except with D.C. is different. Then there are treaties as well, and that usually goes between various countries. And so there are secondary sources of law, such as law reviews, or articles that are written about things on the left, journals that are written about the things on the left. There are codes, such as in business a lot, you'll learn about the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC. And if you're in sales, Article 2, which is sales. Particularly, that's one course alone in law school. And then, once again, there are treaties involved. So there's sources of the law like that. And then we have the court system, which determines, how to resolve issues. And then I'm not going to go into this, but there are timelines for these trials and so forth. So I'm not going to go into that in details. You can take a look at that on your own. So now here's a neat thing, that every week you're going to see this. Trust me, these are good things to do. You don't get graded for them. You can have them to speak to you. If you want to hear it said, you click this box, and it tells you hear it, and which is cool. And so it tells you now what an administrative agency is. That's cool. That is just awesome, I think. And then you can show a definitions list. Okay. So then it helps you again, and then you can go through the whole steps, and you see how many there are and things like that. I'm going to kill the volume there. Okay, so you got the next card, and you can do the same thing over and over. I highly recommend these. And then with this is the first class I've had that had this. This is so cool. And then you flip it over, then it tells you. Cool. Very cool. So anyway, make sure you use that. And then, like I said, if you can let it speak to you, or either you can read it yourself, or read and do it. Okay, so now let's talk about the project. Now, the project is going to take place throughout the course. And we want to make sure that you take a look at this project overview, which I'm not going to read word by word. But the basic idea is you're going to create a contract. That's what you're going to be doing. You're going to, that's what the whole course is all about, to help you in your contract writing. Business law is so huge. And I think this is so awesome. When I was looking through this is the first time I've taught this 5.5 course. And when I first got it, I was excited. I felt like I had a new toy. I said, this is cool. I wish they would do this in the other disciplines, but they haven't reached criminal justice. But says in the second line, second paragraph, you'll be creating a written contract dealing with issues on the story that's below, or the scenario. And it gives you an opportunity to incorporate terms in a contract that are required to do an actual contract. So basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing what lawyers do. This is going to be awesome. It says this is not going to be as complex as a mortgage or even a cell phone contract. You all don't even read the cell phone contracts. You just say, give me the phone and start paying. But anyway, the point of the matter is that read your contracts. There's a term called caveat emptor. It's a Latin phrase. It means let the buyer beware. Read your contracts. I had people that would sign contracts, and for example, I did a lot of real estate. They say, attorney Wright, what should I do? I got this contract. I said, you should have brought it to me before you sign it. Oh, wait a minute, there's an attorney approval writer. Okay, cool, you got it into me in time, which means I can approve certain or change certain issues. And so then we're still in the negotiation stage. However, as a general practice, people don't sign a contract and then take it to an attorney, because you can get out of it, but it's a lot easier if you are still in the negotiation stages. So anyway, this project backstory. This is the basis of what we're going to use. And so I'm not going to read over this, but this is where you'll find it. When you get to your weeks, you'll see also. In the coming weeks, you'll obtain more information about negotiation. But now let's go through the due dates. The final project will be due a week before the course is over, in week 5. Week 5. and there will be things that you'll do along the way, such as, notice introduction is not um, dark because that's not an assignment. But starting from weeks 2 through 5, for the 4 weeks after this, you're going to have assignments that will utilize the information, but you're building a building. And so you're going to deal in stages. And even after, when you get to week 2, you're going to have issues and a worksheet, which you'll see, and I won't go over that. I'll go over that next week. A rough draft. Now, the rough draft is so that I can see how you're doing with it, and I'll grade you according to the rubric based on that. All right? There's rubrics for the written assignment, and there's rubrics for the project. I didn't show you that. I did send them to you, but I also include that on the course homepage. And then 4, opening the doors to your business, and then your final contract will be due on week 5. Okay. Now, the requirement, as I already said, you'll be building. Okay. Says, while you're able to set up your own terms based on information provided, the following terms must be included. So I'm not going to go over these, but this is where you find the information that is essential. If it was me, I would do something like this, and I'm going to I do this. Anyway, it faded out. But I would copy and paste all of these and put them on one sheet, and then I'd have that sheet. That's a suggestion to help you. All right? So you can make sure that at the end and at your draft that you've gotten these things that are important. These are foundational things in contracts. And then letting you know that each of the assignments will be evaluated independently. And that's the course project. That's it. So you should be good with that. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the classroom. Ooh, look at that. That picture is too big. Okay. Oh, wow. You got even bigger. I got to make you smaller. Okay. How do I get back to? Okay. All right. I guess because you're the only one in here. All right. So you have to be careful what you do now because we can see everything that. See, you're scratching your head now. Oh God, that's cool. That's cool. But at any rate, the thing that I want to say is, first of all, do you have any questions? You can shake your head, or let me open up your mic since you're the only one in here. Any questions, Al?
No, not yet. Not any questions right now.
Okay. So
Um, Basically, it was just about the Model One course project. I just wanted to get a better understanding.
there is no, there is no, there is no. I just said that a minute ago. That was
Mm-hmm.
just the review that I did.
Okay.
There is no.
Okay.
The only written assignment you have for this week is your discussion posts
Okay.
and the written assignment that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. All right.
Right? But starting next week,
Yep.
then you will. Weeks 2, 3, and 2 through 5, you'll have
Okay.
written assignments for for that. But I'll be discussing those each of the weeks.
Okay. So that was the one you said. If I notice, Model One is not dark. Okay. I got
Yeah, it's because it's just for me to provide information.
you. Okay.
And actually, if I could show you this. I'm going to go back. Give me a minute here. I want to show you, go back to the course homepage. Okay, and go down to my announcement. Okay, now the announcement for week 1. It says your written assignment is recent crime, business crime.
Okay.
And then it says I will cover the course project. Okay? Now, if you go to course calendar, which I'll show you, and you get here, this is your written assignment
Mhm.
that is due. That's the one I just said, and the rubric uh, and the module gives the details on that. So you're good there, right?
Mhm.
Okay, then when it gets to course project, this is not a written assignment. There we go.
Okay.
See it?
All right.
I will cover the during the week live one lecture, which I just did.
Okay. Okay. Understood.
Okay, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, now let me go back and I want to share with you why I say adversity is the springboard to success. And the reason why I say adversity is the springboard to success, I'm going to cut your mic off there, is because of the fact that I want you to understand why I'm serious about this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself because adversity is something that you go through during the course of obtaining your education. And so, okay. All right, let me do this. Okay. So now, here's the deal. When I was a kid, when I was 7, back in 1957, long time ago, my dad was murdered in front of me, and then the guy that did it didn't go to jail. He stayed in the house, and I grew up in a house of domestic violence. Uh, it was 5 of my younger sisters at that time. I have a photographic memory, so I'll never forget it. And then 5 years later, uh, we moved from the area. We living in the west side of Chicago, pretty tough area. It had changed over from the time I was a little kid. And so we moved to an area called Gary, Indiana. We had a nice home there, as we had a pretty nice home at the other place. And so this was in '63. I was 13 at that time. And the guy was living with us. By this time, my mother had 2 more kids. They were girls, so I had 7 younger sisters and no brothers. And so Memorial Day of 1957, the same guy who lived with my mother continued to beat her, killed her. And that left me and my 7 younger sisters without a mother or father. We were brought back to live with an aunt in the city of Chicago in the south side. We had trouble there. She didn't really want us there. They were talking about splitting us up. But another aunt came and took us and moved us further south, had a house built, and we lived there. Well, I would find out, and that was by this time I was 14, that the guy that killed my mother and father was pleading guilty to killing my mother, and that they would give him 10 years. 10 years, which I didn't think was a lot, but I would find out that at that time the law was 10 meant 5. 5 years. And so this man was going to serve 5 years. But then more bad news came. They said if he was a good guy, that he would serve only 3.5 years if he behaved while he was in prison. I was very troubled by that, you can imagine. So when I get troubled, I start to ask questions of people, and people, didn't tell me what the solution was. Then one day someone said, that's just the way it is, Richard. That's the law. And I said, the law? Talk to me about that. And they told me about these people called lawyers. And so I went to the library at the school as a 14-year-old and asked the librarian, do we have any books on lawyers or attorneys? She said, we have a little book. And I read that book, checked it out, read the book cover to cover in one night. After that, the next day, anybody I met, I didn't care who you were, I said, my name is Richard Wright, and I'm going to be a lawyer. And I went through the struggles and the challenges going through high school. Then after that, my aunt and my uncle, I was having trouble connecting with them because I wanted to keep my last name. My sisters were going to be adopted by them. And ultimately, there was some things that happened that were pretty bad living in that situation for me and pretty tough. So I would go through college. I'd go through high school. And while I was a young kid, I met a lady when I was 14. Also, I met a lady that I liked her voice on the radio in Chicago. And I went and found her and asked her to be my mother. She laughed. Now, remember, I was 14. Now, in those days, 14-year-olds looked like 14-year-olds. Now, 14-year-olds look like they got more hair than me and you put together. Okay, they'll card me before they card them. And so, one of those deals. So anyway, the point of the matter is that here's this little kid asking this lady to be his mother, and she laughed. And she, long story short, became a friend of mine. And she was around me when I graduated from high school and throughout high school. I spent time with her, but I still lived with my aunt and uncle. I didn't get along with him at all. I found out he was a really bad person, that he had done bad things with my sisters. You can fill in the blanks there. And so we had major problems. So I was in a pretty bad situation. So anyway, with this, I graduate. I had an opportunity to go to a four-year institution. The church offered to give me a free scholarship, but they had to sign. He told her, my uncle told her she couldn't sign because I wouldn't take his name. So I wasn't going to give in to that. So I ended up graduating and moved out of the house, moved with some friends, and got married right away, and ended up going to junior college at night. And I got a job. One of my friends, the ones I moved with, their mothers, helped me to get a job in a big law firm. I was in the mail room, so I was a messenger. And people says, "Oh man, you say you're gonna be a lawyer, man? You're a gopher." I said, "Hey, trust me, I know what to do." So I got my foot in the door. You know, when you get your foot in the door, it's all about what you do once you get in there, right? So I got in there, and I ended up introducing myself to the lawyers as I was taking their mail, taking their lunches, and they all knew that, and it was about 40 lawyers. They all knew Richard Wright was working here, and he's going to be a lawyer. And I was taking, listen to me, I was taking 4 classes at night. I did not have a car. I was on the bus. I was on, and we call it the LL or the subway. I rode that. That was what I rode. I used to catch 2 buses and the subway to get to work. I would get at work at 8:30 in the morning, and then have to be in class at 4:30. I got off of work at 4 and went straight to class. I had 2 arms of books, man. I mean, the guys gave me a document carrier to put my books in, and I would read those books. I would study those books. And I'd fall asleep on the L train after I got out of classes. I'd get home, have a bite to eat, study, then have to get up early the next morning to head back to work again. It took me an hour and a half to get to work. So I did that. Rain, hail, sleet, or snow. I stayed on the honor roll and the dean's list at the school. So I would ultimately end up at the law firm. They saw that I was serious about what I was doing. So they came to me and says, "Hey, look, we need a file clerk. Would you be willing to be a file clerk?" So I became a file clerk in the law firm. And so I ended up working in the law firm. Oh, by the way, when I was a messenger, I took a package to one of the clients, and it was a gentleman by the name of Ray Kroc. That name may or may not mean anything to you, but that's a big name in the business field. Do you know what he's famous for? Do you know? Okay, McDonald's. He's the founder and creator, started McDonald's, Ray Kroc. And so Mr. Kroc, I actually sat like we're sitting here, and I actually talked. We're in the same room. And he ended up taking me as his personal messenger. And he liked me because here I was in the mailroom. Now, when the guys came to work in the mailroom, they all came dressed like this, polo shirts and stuff like that. Not me. I used to come in a white shirt and a tie. I didn't wear a jacket, but that's how I dressed. He took note of that, and he took me under his wing. And I used to have lunch with him. I used to go take a package to him, and then he wouldn't let me go back to the law office and take me to meetings with him. So I learned a lot. So anyway, then I became the file clerk. He called to congratulate me for that promotion. My boss in the file department didn't know that I knew him. She thought it was a guy playing a joke on me. And I said, no, I really know him. And so, I'm not one of these kind of guys that say, hey, yeah, I know, No, I didn't do that. So anyway, I ended up working in the file department. And, in the meantime, I'm moving forward in school, getting over my semesters. We were on semesters at that time. And so I ended up then being approached because something happened to the law librarian. They said, hey, Richard, were you interested in this job? So I said, yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't know anything about it, but I said, I never said no. I said, yeah, because, hey, man, you can learn anything you really want to. And so I was moving upward. All the people that were laughing at me when I was a messenger began to stop laughing because they say, oh, wow. But it's all about how you present yourself. It's all about how you carry yourself. And people were watching me. Man, they were seeing. And when I would get on the dean's list, my boss would ask me for the information, and they would print it in the bulletin that went around the whole law office, and all the lawyers would see my name. Every time they saw my name, they were associated with advancement. So who do they want to move up? Hey, the guy that's showing advancement. So anyway, I ended up taking the job as a law librarian. In the meantime, I left junior college and went to a four-year institution called Roosevelt University. And I said I'm going to get a degree in political science, minoring in business. So in the business courses, I took accounting, I took marketing, and the different things that I needed. I took business law, all that stuff. So anyway, the bottom line is that, and I was staying on the Dean's List honors roll. Now, by this time, I had two kids, two little ones. They're 46 and 47 years old now. And so I ended up reaching the point in the law library where I had to file the books away. But I used to sit there and listen to the lawyers talk. So then one day, they found out something that I had taught myself, and that was how to research, how to write a memo. And so they were talking about a case, and when they were talking about this case, they didn't know I was sitting there listening. But when they went to lunch, I knew what they were talking about. I knew the system for research. I went and pulled from the law library shelf books under each point of law, opened it up, put a little piece of paper in there, and left it stacked up, about 10 books. So after lunch, now besides that day I stayed and ate my lunch at my desk. And so anyway, the guys came back, says, Richard, we can't find any of the cases that are on point. And here's a list of the cases that we're looking for. I said, they're over there in the corner, stacked up. They said, who did that? I said, I did that. They said, you know how to do that? I said, yeah, I also know how to write memos and briefs. They said, come with me. So you're in trouble now. So they took me to the big boss. And the big boss, they told him, they said, we're wasting our money on this kid. This kid knows how to write, research, and all of this. We need to create a position for him. Well, they created a position called, at that time, a legal assistant, now called paralegal. And I learned it right there. And so they hired somebody to do my job, and I was their boss. And then it freed me up. Man, I used to go to court with the lawyers, sit at the tables and watch them. I used to go to real estate closings, negotiations for contracts. I remember McDonald's owner wanted to buy a baseball team, and I was involved in the sessions where they sat and talked about negotiations of contracts for buying the team. He wanted to buy the Cubs, but at that time the guy who owned Wrigley Chewing Gum wasn't selling. So Mr. Crock and I had discussions about that, and all these high-powered people in the room, none of them knew that. Mr. Crock called on me during the meeting, okay? All the lawyers, accountants, and bigwigs. He says, Richard, tell them why I can't. They thought I was in trouble because I told this man with all this money that he couldn't buy this Cub team. But I knew, and he and I had agreed. And then he said, see, that's why this young man's going to go places. So the senior partner from the law firm says, yeah, he works for us. He was sticking his chest out. Anyway, the bottom line and point I'm just bringing to you is that I went through all of that. So anyway, I struggled through college too, because I mean, how do you know? It's tough balancing working, raising kids, going to school, and no car and all of that stuff with the circumstances. But I had a mission, man. I was like the dude in the Blues Brothers. I'm on a mission from God. I'm going to get to this thing, and I'm going to do it with excellence. So anyway, the point of the matter is I continued on doing that. And then finally it came time to apply to law school. They said you should apply to 3 law schools. I said, I'm applying to Northwestern University School of Law. They said, do you know how hard it is to get in there? Well, yeah, I found out it was 10,000 students applying for 250 seats every class. Didn't bother me, because one of those seats belonged to me, man. I knew it belonged to me. I had it in my heart, I was committed. Nobody's going to stop me, So I did. I applied, and they saw my package. The package for a law school application was very thin, about 6-7 pages. But when I sent my package, it fit into a big box about like this. What the heck is this? This is just a first-year person coming in. They saw my package. They called me to come to the law school and met with me. They wanted to know about me. They wanted me to tell the story that I had written about what happened with my childhood. And they sat there and they listened to me. There were 3 or 4 people sitting across the table from me. It was just me and my big box sitting over on their table. And they said, wow. They said, we'd be delighted to have a student like you, but we can't give you an offer now. But what we will say is you can look forward to hearing from us in the few weeks to come with some information that you'll like. So basically what they said was, yeah, okay. So I got the letter, of course, being accepted into the law school. Yay! So I had made it. So anyway, I get in law school, and the law firm is happy about it and everything. So I get there in the first year of law school. I find out that I can't work at all. Well, my first wife I had at that time, the mother of those 2 kids, she was a teacher. She had graduated. This was in 1975, and she graduated, and she ended up having to take over everything. So as soon as I started this tough program, I'm going to show you how tough it was. We started it a week, and one professor said, look to your left, look to your right, look in front of you, and look right behind you. Says, I want to bet you in a couple of weeks some of those seats will be vacant. And sure enough, there was people. One guy left out of the school cussing. He was just like he had a breakdown. Wow. Here I'm looking at this. So then here comes my situation. Never in the history of the city of Chicago did the schools go on strike. That year was the first year. No income. So we had 2 kids. We had an apartment. We lost our electricity. Man, let me tell you what I did. I studied by candlelight. I did. I sat and read candlelight and flashlight. I read, and then I'd write my stuff down. But I did it. See, we ran out of money. We had canned beans and stuff, man. We opened up the cans, and of course we couldn't use electric because we didn't have any electricity. And it was tough. It didn't go on for a week or 2. It went on for a few months, and so we lived like that. my kids were there, and then we finally sent them to their grandmother's house, which was a few blocks away, and she said they could stay there with them. But here's the deal. I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let what happened in my childhood stop me. I used it in a positive thing. And so anyway, we made it through. Oh, I did. I will say this. I reached a point where it just became so overwhelming. I told one of my professors, I said to her, I says, Dr. Hughes, I says, I'm going to probably be leaving for a while because I got to take care of my family and go back to work. She says, come see me after class. So I did. She took me in her office, sat me down. She says, park your butt in that seat. She stood in front of the door with her arms folded and says, you're not leaving here, this room, until you decide you're going to stay. She says, we can work this out. You can do this. She says, I know your story. You can do this. This is just another bump in the road. And so I says, okay, I'll hang in there. She says, no, don't hang in there. You just do it, okay? And so I did. I took her up on it. And 3 years later, she was one of the people that I grabbed and hugged when I obtained my law degree. So I ran into other issues there. But the point of the matter is this, guys. I learned how to operate in an adverse situation. I ended up finding a person that I met, one of my instructors, who was a lecturer in criminal law, because my passion was in criminal law because I wanted to find out about that. So the law firm gave me a job to come as a lawyer. So now here we go. I started in that same law firm. By the way, they had no black attorneys when I got there. It was a big Jewish law firm. I was the first black attorney in that law firm, okay? Because I was a kid who wanted to do it, and they knew, hey, we're proud to have you. Your work ethic, challenges don't bother you. So I ended up with a third child by the time I graduated from law school, and she's 40 now. By the way, she's getting ready to graduate from Rasmussen College. She decided to start school way back some time ago and stopped. But she got married, had 3 kids, decided she'd go back to school because she's my kid, and I work for Rasmussen. She got a scholarship. So I have all my students say, can you adopt me too? But anyway, so the point of the matter is this. I continued to work. I didn't let things stop me. And it took me 6 years of going through college at night because I did have to a couple times reduce my load to 2 classes. One time I had 1 class. But hey, here's what I'm going to tell you. Between the time I started kindergarten when I was 5 in 1955 and when I graduated from law school in 1978, in the regular school year, I was always in school. I never quit because continuity, and this is what I stress now. Oh, I'm going to take off a semester. Because that semester says, I'm going to take another semester off. The money gets good to you. I got a daughter right now who's 18. She's got 2 jobs. I'm trying to get her to go on. She doesn't decide what she wants to do. I don't make you go. You decide what you want to do. And I told her, I says, how do you know that your 2 jobs? I now get Social Security and full time because I'm 60. I'm 68. People say, "Whoa, you're that old?" I says, "Yes, I am. I'm a senior citizen for real." Okay, a senior citizen who works out, who's very active, So, and got a 10-year-old baby girl. Whoa, I'm scared of you, But anyway, the point of the matter is I'm on the serious side, simply saying is that I told this child, I says, my Social Security is more than your 2 jobs put together a month. I says, plus I get paid for full-time teaching at the college really well. Well, anyway, how did that happen? Education, tenacity, excellence, people being tough on me. I had trouble with algebra. I stayed with it. Trigonometry, tough. I stayed with it. So the point of the matter is that I tell students Don't be afraid of something that's a challenge. You know, students get in school and they have to take, for example, the basic courses other than the areas that you want to go into, business. Then you got to take English. You got to take some science. You got to take that dreaded math and all of that. Hey, don't let it stop you. Keep going because you got to do it. You want to have a well-rounded education. So anyway, the bottom line is I did all of that and made it through. So anyway, I met a person when I was in law school. One of my classmates' dad was a distinguished criminal lawyer who later became a judge. He suggested to me, I told him my story, he suggested that I be a defense lawyer. Now people thought, whoa, man, you want to be a prosecutor. Well, he said, you'll learn more as a defense lawyer. So I took him up on it. And I became a criminal defense lawyer. And I represented people who committed murder, defended them. People said, wow, you're good. And I was good. I could communicate with the juries. I love juries. I was exposed to some great teaching. There's a fellow by the name of Johnny Cochran. He's passed away now. He's very famous now. He was O.J.'s lawyer. I met him 10 years before that when I went to a seminar because the judge that was a friend of mine told me to go. You know, if somebody who knows something that's going to benefit me, I'm going to figure out a way to get what they're talking about. And that's a good practice for all of my students, too. So anyway, the point of the matter is that I continue to move forward. I left a big law firm, started my own practice on my kitchen table, and the practice grew. And it grew, and it grew, and I left my kitchen table. I ended up with 2 law offices, 5 or 6 lawyers working for me, and it grew. I started doing radio, getting very creative, doing a radio show called Know Your Rights. Rights was spelled W-R-I-G-H-T-S. My phone number was dial 974-4487, which spells W-R-I-G-H-T-S. My license plates were Wrights. I was marketing myself, but I was doing, here's a kid, I'm trying to show you, man. I didn't just jump out at this. This came through some rough and hard work. And guess what? You can do it too. Anybody can do it. They just have to apply themselves. So anyway, the point of the matter is that I was very successful. In the meantime, 91 to 93, I went to seminary. I got involved in ministry and got my, well, I shouldn't say I got it, but I got everything that I needed for a Master of Arts in Religion, but one paper. But it wasn't important for me to get the degree. I wanted the knowledge and information. So I ended up getting involved in ministry. In 2000, when I was 50 years old, I retired from being a lawyer. I started weaning down. I worked as a minister, but then I ran a janitorial company for some people. I taught special education to at-risk kids, and I had students that have followed me from 2001 that are now college graduates. They were at-risk kids. They were kids that people had given up on. One, instead of becoming a juvenile delinquent, she's a juvenile probation officer right now. You know, and she says, Mr. Wright, I kept hearing your voice talking to me, and throughout the years, she hadn't seen me. Facebook hooked us back up. But anyway, the point of the matter is, I've worked with students, and that's the way I believe in giving back, and that's the same way that I am right now. So anyway, I ended up doing closings for title companies, refinancing people's houses. I was doing the contracts. I told you I know something about that I had learned as a lawyer. So then, 2011, by this time, I should tell you, I had gone through a divorce, and then the second divorce, and then finally I met the person I'm married to now. We celebrated 24 years, July 28th. She and I have 4 kids. Those are the ones you see on the picture when you look at my picture in the student lounge. At any rate, I continued moving forward, bam, all the time. I worked with athletes. I worked with baseball players. Sox were my favorite team. By the way, one of the reasons why the Sox were my favorite team going back, when my dad was killed in '57, that day, the last place he took me was Sox Park, and he loved the White Sox. So if they win one game, I'm still going to be a Sox fan. A lot of people around here are wearing Cubs stuff that never wore Cubs stuff, and all of a sudden, I said, you wait till the Sox start winning. You're not coming back. We're not going to let you back on. You can't be leaving the team and going to another just because your team's doing bad. You know, I've been a Bulls fan forever. You know, so I like Golden State, but you know, but anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But I find myself basically what I'm saying to you guys is I've worked along the way. So then here we come to 2011. Somebody tells me about this school called Rasmussen College. I never heard of the place. So I did what I always do. I did my research. I found out about it. Well, then I found out that the chairman of the board of directors was a gentleman who I knew the name because he was the former president and is president emeritus at Northwestern University, my law school alma mater. And that said to me, there's credibility for this school. I'm going to go. And I applied for the job. And they hired me to teach residentially as an adjunct professor. What was this course? Business Law 234. And it was residentially. And so I've been teaching at the college since 2011. But I let them know quickly. I says I'm a criminal justice guy. And so they say, okay. So then the people in the business department fight over me. They says, no, we want, if you don't have enough hours in the criminal justice, please, Dr. Wright, would you please consider? I said, yeah. I'll teach business law. So that's why you guys are stuck with me for the next 5.5 weeks. You know. So anyway, the bottom line is I have been teaching there. I applied for a position full-time when it finally opened up as state program coordinator, School of Justice Studies, and I got that job. Let me say this. I've never applied for a job that I didn't get because I'm a go-getter, okay? I don't accept no for an answer because you'd be an idiot, I don't say that though, to not to want to hire me if you're looking for somebody to do a job. And that's the kind of work ethic you want of a person there. And, you know, not a person who's big-headed, but a person who's big-hearted. You know, I believe giving and sharing and paying forward. And that's what I've done years. And so I love this job. So this college has been really nice to me. I teach full-time now. I teach 5 classes. Don't be surprised if, matter of fact, no, you won't. It won't happen. You'll miss it. The next lecture that we do is next Tuesday, but the lecture next Tuesday after that, I will have just gotten back home. I'm going to Texas over the weekend of the 17th. And let's see, no, my lectures won't be until after I get back. But if I was there, I would do a lecture from Texas because I take my laptop, hook it up, and then you guys, wherever you are, I see you. You guys are all over the country, and we're able to utilize this great resource to be able to see each other and to talk to each other. So anyway, the bottom line is that, oh, wow, it's 6:33. I'm bumping into my next class. So anyway, I just want to share that with you and take time for you to get that information. So I'm going to run out of here. I didn't even, oh, wait a minute. Am I right? Yeah, I got another lecture at 6:30. It is 6:33, and some of my students are already here, I can tell. So this is like I'm going to be leaving this classroom. So I'm going to say good night to you guys in business law. But those of you who are in, I don't know, what's my next one? I think it's Introduction to Criminal Law. Woo-wee! I'll be doing a lecture on that coming up in about a couple minutes or so. So with that, I'm going to say good night. You guys, oh, and the word that I'm looking for, the key word for this session is open house. So that's the word I'm going to be looking for. You guys who are here for the next class, I was going to use that too, but I'm not using it. Okay, you're going to have another one. So I'm going to say good night to you guys in business. I'll see you next week. Have a good rest of the week. And anytime, you know how to reach me. All right, I'm going to say good night.